What up, world? Steve over here at SoReal Sounds. So I want to take a minute to talk to you guys about Wavtech. If you've ever heard of this company before, you already know what they're all about. But if you're new to them, what they do is they make integration products for when we're adding amplifiers to factory radios. So they've got a lot of great pieces that can do the summing that we need. It can take the high voltage in for any cars that already have a factory amplified sound system, and they're line drivers. So when we add them with the amplifiers, we make sure we get maximum input to the amplifiers, which will give us the output and sound quality that we're looking for. What I want to talk about today is the IRAD. And I want to talk about it not because it's a really rad piece, although it is, but it does help with some of the issues that we come across in today's vehicles. So take a look at this piece here. Check this out. So like we mentioned, Wavtech makes a lot of great integration products if you're keeping the factory radio, but you want to add amplifiers to them. Okay, but specifically today, we want to talk about the IRAD. That's this piece here. So let's pull this guy out. Take a look at it. So obviously we've got the installation manual. And then check out this little guy. He's cute, isn't he? Look at that. So this piece isn't designed to be super big because it doesn't really need to be. It's not doing anything with any audio signals. But again, this is going to take care of three major issues that we get into with cars. First one will be creating an ignition. So for vehicles that don't have a true ignition and they only have an ignition sense, like a lot of push-to-start cars, we can use this device here without having to take everything on the car apart. We can simply get a constant power and a ground to this in with the programming buttons on the side. So there's one there for ignition. If it can focus, there's one there for ignition and there's one there for remote, and they serve different purposes. But if we're going to generate an ignition out of this, then we use that programming switch, and we can now, without having to get really deep into the car or taking it apart, we can now have an ignition wire to turn on things like radar detectors or things that don't need a lot of amperages to keep it running. The second issue would be remote turn on. So if you are doing audio related stuff, then we have one that we can do a remote turn on for the vehicles that don't have a natural remote turn on like the aftermarket radios do. The third thing is going to be for vehicles that have the start stop feature. So, you know, start stop cars, the engine shuts off when you're at a red light. That can be an issue with some audio systems because now there's not enough current to keep the amplifiers going, so your sound system shuts off, which really stinks when you're listening to your favorite song. So with this here, because we have different programming options and we can even do things like delay when the unit turns on or when it turns off, then cars that have start-stop features, that no longer becomes an issue. So we can use this to run amplifiers if the system's not a really huge one, but if it is a really huge one, then we can also get into relay solenoids and use this to control that relay solenoid. And then you add a second battery to the vehicle, so that way when the engine shuts off at the stoplight, the second battery will then run your system, so nothing shuts off for you. But then when the engine turns on, it'll re-engage everything so that the secondary battery is charging along with the main battery to the vehicle. So those are kind of the three issues that we come across in some cars that this is really helpful to have. So it's really good if you're you know, an everyday technician in our industry, or if you're another shop. This would be a great piece to just keep on hand at all times because you never know when you're going to need it. You know, in this here, you can kind of see here are some of the different scenarios that allows it to do. So again, it'll create an ignition for cars that don't have a true ignition. It'll create a remote turn on for the amplifiers when the car doesn't have one and you need to create one. And then it's great for the start stop features so that the system doesn't shut off for you. And again, for larger systems, you can get into relay solenoids to keep everything going for you. You know, or same thing too, maybe you need an ignition and you need a remote turn on. The benefit to having both is you can program the ignition to come on with the vehicle like it does, but if you're getting a very loud pop from your audio system because the amplifiers are turning on before the audio signal gets to it, then you can program the ignition to turn on like it should with the vehicle, but you can do the remote turn on delayed. So you could set this for maybe a couple of seconds after the ignition turns on, so that way it'll eliminate any popping from the audio system, so the amplifiers will only come on when it's seeing signal. So if you have a car that has a start-stop feature, if you have a vehicle that doesn't have true ignition wires or remote turn-ons that you need, this IRAD is a really great piece to go with. Just like all the other products from Wavtech, It's built very well, and if you have issues with any vehicle sound system shutting off or trying to find remote turn-ons or ignition turn-ons, this IRAD is a great piece to do. Installation is very simple, so a lot of do-it-yourselfers will be able to do this without having to take the whole car apart, and it makes our life easier in the Bay as well. So it's a great piece to have. If you need any more information on this, don't hesitate to give us a call or give Wavtech a call, and I hope this helps you guys out. SoReal Sounds, Wavtech IRAD. Y'all have a great day.